Hey soccer friends, I just want to give a shout out to our partner, Team Player. They are changing the game on how you find the perfect soccer team for your player. Parents, this means no more endless social media scrolling to find information on teams. With Team Player, everything you need to know is just a few clicks away. It's simple, straightforward, and lets you find the best coach and team for your player without any of the usual headaches. And coaches, we all know how tough it can be to get your team noticed, but when you subscribe to one of Team Player's team plans, you instantly get access to set up an online team profile that allows you to reach more potential players and showcase what your team is all about. It's super easy and lets players and parents see why your team could be the right fit for them. And if you sign up using the promo code PITCH, you can try any team plan free for 1 month. So whether you're managing a team or searching for one, come on over to www.teamplayer.us. That is TEAMPLAYR.US. And come give Team Player a look. Family-owned Soccer Innovation is your go-to source for top quality equipment. Whether you're a player, a supportive family member, or a dedicated coach, they have everything you need to elevate your game. For players, their innovative equipment are designed to boost your skills and performance on the pitch. From their agility cones to their portable goals, they have you covered. And family members, they offer durable equipment that's built to last because we know your support is critical to your player. Coaches, trust me, they can provide the equipment you need to run effective training sessions and shape the next generation of soccer players. Visit Soccer Innovations at soccerinnovations.com to start elevating your game with them. And if you use the code PITCH, PITCH, you can receive up to 10% off your next order. Hey everyone, this is Ian Babcock, your host of Chat by the Pitch. This week is part 2 with Coach Anthony, so let's start this chat and head to the pitch.
So we have Joe that came from he's a UEFA A licensed youth coach. He's one of the highest coaching programs you can get, coaching license you get. So we let him do the boys side and he's got that structure for the boys. So they'll do certain things that are a little bit different. But the reality is the style. If you put 2 teams in white shirts, Storm and somebody else, you should be able to say that's the Storm team. That's how we see it. And that's what we're trying to get across. That's not a perfect world, of course, but that's what our aim's at.
It takes a lot, even with how many coaches do you guys have? If you don't mind me asking now.
29
coaches. And being someone that has talked to several different coaches and different programs and out of state and in state now, they have 29 coaches to buy into the same philosophy is very hard. Many clubs grow so quickly and they can't keep their culture. And but from the sounds of it, you have I'll call it your handbook. You hand the coaches, and this is pretty much saying what you're doing, and this is the philosophy. And like you said,
Ian, on top of that, and I didn't interrupt you.
No, you're good.
That was rude of me. I apologize. But whenever a coach shows an interest in coming in to the club, I meet them. I go through everything because it could be a 2-hour meeting just talking and going through stuff. Because I also feel if it ain't a good fit, it ain't a good fit. We don't want to go 6 months down the road, lose friendship, and hit a brick wall with it. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot to be said before coaches come into the club. And we do a lot of coaching mentorship. And we also do, I'll talk about that in a second, but we do a lot of coaching mentorship that we want to be able to teach our coaches the way that we're doing things and the standards we want and how we structure our sessions. And I don't want them looking at a YouTube video and thinking that looks good and hard, that it will impress the parents. No. What is the delivery of the content that we need on the subject matter that you're doing for that very practice session? And does that fit into the 4 or 5 weeks? Don't have a defending practice and then you work on a skills practice. And then the very next week, you've got a possession-based practice. And then you've got a crossing and finishing practice. The kids are like, you ask them what they ate for breakfast yesterday and they've got a hard time to remember. So you've got to keep something a little bit more statistic than that. Now, for us, that also helps us retain because we can understand by listening what they're really after and what that coach's what that coach's philosophy is, what that coach wants to do, the why that they're coaching. And there's a wider range of why people coach, a very wider range.
I bet you've came across many. So I actually like what you were talking about, and you were starting to talk about it earlier, but the mentoring. I think that is something is missing in our soccer community. I'm looking from the outside in. I like numbers and data and statistics, and in my job, it takes years to do what you do, my day job, to learn how to do it very well and efficiently. It's not something you just get thrown into. Oh, you can do this in 3 months, you're good to go. I feel coaching's the same way, if not more, because what you may learn from Coach A and Coach B, they both have the same end goal, but the philosophy is completely different. And you have to find the philosophy that matches your core values and standards. And when you actually have that, and then you have a mentoring program with it, I think the synergy that you can build with those programs and those coaches is unbelievable. And from the sounds of it, you talked about mentoring very quickly, and I'm assuming you're very detail oriented already from the sounds of it. And I'm assuming your mentoring program is something along those lines. So what is your mentoring program for your coaches?
It is. So Joe he has been mentoring 3 people. He had 4. We lost one who ended up joining a club further north and is doing very well. Still calls us, still meets with us whenever he's got questions. He's been asked to take a couple of teams up there. We'd love to get him back, of course. I think one of the biggest obstacles for us is cash. When you're doing a mentoring program, somebody doesn't have a team. And typically a lot of teams here pay their coaches by the team fees, right? And if you've got a coach mentor, you're working under somebody, and that becomes difficult. So we have to set aside some kind of budget to get some gas money to them. It's not, they're younger people. They want to have, excuse me, or they want a knowledge, a thirst to learn, to be better. But so I got 3 on my side. He's got 3 on the boys' side. We've had coaches that have graduated out of it, have got their own teams now, and they either are all boys or all girls side, or they do flip in between the two, because it's not like we're 2 separate entities. We do work in between, but we also want to make sure we're not confusing a coach coming out of the mentorship program, going from a boys program to a girls program, and the differences that we believe are in the two, because it becomes harder, right? If you've got a 6 till 7:30 practice and 7:30 till 9, you've got limited time in between to be able to restructure a session, unless you're going to set up 2 sessions prior, or you've got the ability to pick up the cones. And regardless, we try and, if there's going to be a girls and a boys, we have to try and make sure they can design sessions and set out sessions in such a way that it's easier to transition immediately to the next team that comes in. But ultimately, they follow us games and training sessions. During the games, after the first, once I start feeling to be a little bit more comfortable, I let them lead the way. So what I do at first, if we're doing a pre-game talk, they're not allowed to shout to or communicate any type of coaching during the game at the beginning. And the reason for that is one voice, one coaching, right? So it's too easy. You've got enough freaking coaches on the other side of the parents, right? So it's too easy. And the parent and the kid are just going to confuse, or they'll just sound it out. Or the coach is going to say something that they haven't quite thought out yet, or it's at the wrong moment, the wrong time, but they want to sound like they're not impressing you, but they're learning, they're doing their job. So they feel they need to say stuff. So we try and keep that down and just say, hey, listen to the delivery of the content that we're giving the kids during the game. Let's watch what the kids are doing. Let's see how they're reacting. Look at their eyes. Look at what they're doing. Look at their body shape. Look at how they're reacting. Look at all those things that you have to understand a human being, whether it's 100 degrees, 30 degrees, or anywhere in between. In Texas, we got it all. So you're going to have to understand all of that. And you want to get them to run through your brick walls for you. So you've got to get an understanding of those players. So we have them listening. And then for the first few games, we'll go through systematically. All our coaches use boards for visual, not just boards, but they'll also, like I like to do a lot more of me explaining things and moving and so forth, not just magnets. I don't think always the magnets show, because I think some kids need to learn it a bit different, like I did when I was a kid. And then after 3, 4, 5 games, when I feel they've got a little comfortable, I let them take a pre-game or a halftime, not do all of it. And then at the end of it, I'll never step in. I'll let them do it all. And then at the end of it, like this past Sunday, this new mentor that I'm doing, he came from another club, and he's an alumni. He came from our younger boy, our 96 boys team. and it was not thought of much at the other club, but here he's doing tremendous with us, and he's so enthusiastic. But what he did at half time wasn't going to fly, but I had to let him roll with it. And then at the end, I'd never stepped in for those kids to see me step in. Once they got on the field, I was, hey, a couple of things. When you're in that half time, I don't feel you should be talking to individuals before everybody should be coming in. Get everybody in, because I think there's information that could be heard across everybody, not just the one or two. And don't eyeball on those, and probably go through something in the first half that you feel 2 or 3 points we could do better at, 2 or 3 points that we need to look at the other team. And there's just pick those, not too much information, and then you can go individual, then select your team, and then I think we're good to go. And you can ask them questions. Everybody good, everybody need a drink, let them go on. So there's certain things you can do to help them throughout that process each time you go along. Not like bombarding them with 15, like, that was terrible. What do you think you're doing? What, you should have been doing this and this. No, you did a great job. Let's see if we can do this now. And then for that, I won't let them do all three. I'll do the end for them and wrap it all up.
That's really impressive. As a parent, that I did coach my son for about 18 months and about a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half at the club level. And you can't have too many voices. I didn't understand the tactical side of the game. I like stats. So I would keep track of substitutes. You're talking 5 and 6 year olds. So it's not like it's really hard. And I can't compare it to anything other than that because I've not coached other than that. But when they would come off the field or in training sessions, I would sit on the bench next to them and have a conversation, either cheer them up or try to explain something that I saw. Then at halftime, one of us would take the halftime chat and the other one would take the end of the game chat and make it quick and simple. And which is not my forte in life, being quick and simple when it comes to chatting and talking to these kids and trying to explain stuff. Like you said, like, you can't individualize them. You have to have them all there at once. And I think that's impressive. Having coached just that age group, listening to what you're saying and the passion and building it up. So what do you guys do as they go through? So you have your coaching mentorships.
As we feel they've hit, and something I missed up there, predominantly in practices and in games, we ask them questions. So we ask them, how do you feel? How do you feel it went? How does the first half go? Do you think it was good? What do you think about the other team? And we have that kind of chit chat before we even go into kind of some stuff as well, because we need feedback from them as well. If you don't get that feedback, it's one way. They're not talking. They're just going to zone right out. Especially, like you said, it's not all about the chat. It's about how do you deliver the information to get the best out of them. If you don't do it two-way, at some point they're drinking, then there's an airplane, and then I don't care what age group they are, they're going to look at a game across the road, or it is, and that can be a 16-year-old. I'm telling you right now, if you are monotone and there's no interaction there, then you've got some problems there. But what we do then is, so I'll talk about Joe's, because my guys are still under me right now. They've not ventured out just yet. I've given them what they can expect, which is a team, and I've let them do a couple of sessions. I've done the designing, but next week they got to design the session. They've actually come back to me and said, hey, I found this and this from the video and in the game that we probably need to work on. I like that. But again, the coaching process, and I'm big on the coaching process. On the coaching process, I don't think always that something that goes wrong on a Saturday should be addressed in a coaching session off of your 4 to 5 week block session, because it could be just that team that causes you problems in that one area. I think it's an area that you jot down, and if it happens on a second and a third occasion, we need to think about how we're going to get the next block going in, or do we need to have a break in the block and address that situation at that point for a couple of sessions and then go back to the block. But I don't believe that if I went and played against a team and I had somebody ripping me up on the left-hand side, it could be just because that left winger was outstanding. I might play the next week and they ain't got no left winger. So I don't want to, we can mention it and we can talk about it, but we don't need to knee-jerk reaction to the next week and design a complete session over that. So when the guys are coming back to me and saying, hey, I've seen this and this, that's fantastic, let's jot that down. But we're not going to knee-jerk reaction yet for that. What we'll do is we'll continue on our 4-5 week. So we're on an 8 week block. We're on an 8-session block right now, so it's 4 week block. So we'll continue on that block, get that done so that the kids aren't having to change direction. And we're talking 9-year-old kids. So we're not changing direction and popping back again, because you'll lose them from what we've been systematically trying to build and build and build until we get to the final 3 to 4 sessions that we put it all together within a game situation or wherever that situation occurs on the field that we're working on. But once they get to that point and we feel that they're confident on it, then I pretty much come sit down. I can't sit, by the way, when I coach, but I will absolutely attempt to be seatbelted onto a bench and enjoy watching some soccer with some great coaching. And then we'll go and just have a chit chat post game and say, hey, how do you feel that went? What do you think you could have done better? And if I see something on the other team that was probably glaring, that they were beating us, or we were able to overcome them more, or we have more success in certain areas, and they didn't pick up on those, I'll bring those out and see if they could notice them and what could they have done and blah, blah, blah. Just little things like that. And just really that at that point, we're creating them as clubs, and they've got an allegiance to the club, not to themselves to move on again. Does that make sense? Whereas if I bring people from the outside, typically they've come in for a reason and they're going to leave for a reason.
That being said, do you find yourself, you mentioned it, sorry, I have to regather my thought here. As you have coaches that come in and coaches that you have, do you guys do so many years with one coach, then you get passed on to the next level, or does a coach hang on to the team as long as they're around?
I think that drifted between two things you were saying. The reality is, on the boys' side, if they're with Boyd, then Joe's going to look after them, and they're going to go to as many games as they probably could get to, want to, can do. On my side, right now, because I've got assistant coaches on some of the other teams, it was the younger teams that I was like, there's a couple of teams I don't have an assistant coach on. I thought it'd be a fantastic way where they don't feel like a sore thumb where they're just standing up because an assistant coach has been there for years. Now, that being said, that could be their team, but it might not be their team long term. It might be, if a coach wants to coach a team and take them all the way through to graduation, we're okay with that. There's also coaches that I talked about earlier that are very good at 77 phase and the golden age phase. And that's okay. We may have to then pass them. So like on the boys' side, we've got a couple of coaches that are very good at the 77, 44. And then Joe does 99, believe it or not, and then passes on to me for MB11. So it really, if you set something in stone in something as fluid as humans, I think you're on a losing pathway. You have to at least, we have coaches that are excellent at certain age groups and certain formats, and I think we use them for that. But that doesn't mean that they have to lose the team if they don't want to, because I think there's a rapport between, especially over here, you have a rapport between a parent and a coach. And that's just as important. I could turn around and say, or Joe could turn around as the boys director and say, hey, you're going to move on to blah, blah now. And they're like, we don't want to. We love him. My kid has grown so much in confidence with him. There's a lot to learn from listening to some of that as well. Now, at the same time, I think people don't change. So there's also that you have to think about as well. But for any of our mentors, and we do interns as well, by the way, we have internships as well, but any of those coaches that come in, we want them to gather more from other people around. So anybody that's under my kind of mentorship, they'll get, and I make sure they get to introduced to the boy side and the girl side of the practice field, and they know exactly who everybody is. And that way they can go and ask questions. Or if I have a game, I'm trusting them to take a session. They've got one of my assistant coaches like, hey man, how you doing? What you got rolling? Do you need any help? And that way they can learn from those people as well. And really the majority of the club has been made up of that. It really has. And again, I think parents can look into that. Everybody wants me or Joe, right? That's sometimes the issue you're going to have. Parents want you. Parents always look like, I want him or I want him. But if we're using the same system and everything, and it's obviously going to go 6 foot under at some point up here, I've got to get as much out as I can, because otherwise, what's the point? There's nothing secret here. Coaching is all about taking and helping other people and making sure the game can move on and move on. And we can only do that through giving that information across. So.
That's the thing. My son, I use him as my example, but the coaching staff that he has around him, there's about 6 to 7 coaches that practice at the same fields. But any one of those coaches can come and step in and take over a practice or take over a game and know all the boys. When they're first introduced to the group, it takes some time for them to mentor the coaches like you're doing. I think that's the first time I ever heard of an extensive mentorship like that. I think that's phenomenal. As a parent looking in, they have to go through a lot to even get a team. But can any of your coaches come say, let's say you can't make it, or another one of your assistant coaches can't make it? Do all the other coaches know the players, either on the boys' side or on the girls' side, or can they just step in any moment and just say, because the philosophy is the same throughout the club, and the 8 week block, that 8 to 10 week block's the same. So they understand what's going on. Can they step
Yeah,
in
so
and
that
help?
that can vary between. So on the girls' side of the program, yes, all of my teams are under the same kind of block and really at varying different areas. Now, there's sometimes that doesn't work out because we have to have the younger girls might have to be doing something different to the older girls, but they're all on their blocks. The teams are on their blocks. Now, something that I want to take pride in is making sure I know all the kids and the kids' names. That's an undertaking. But I don't do a bad job on that. As we get bigger and open, it becomes more difficult. But to your question, we unfortunately had a coach that was diagnosed with cancer right after tryouts last year. 2 teams, and that division was the West Division. So, in order to make that work on last minute was the help that we all have is the fact that the coaches. So one of my assistant coaches knows those kids up there. I know those kids up there as well. So I had one of the assistant coaches coming up and taking the coaching program up there. And then I would call the leagues and say, hey, this is the situation. Is there any way you can help me out so I can get to the games and help out our coach that's having to step away and have his health taken care of? And then I came in and stepped in and coached. And because we were able to communicate with the coach that was having medical treatment and with the assistant coaches that I talked to on a regular basis back down in Waxahachie that he was talking to up in the West, we're able to make that work. And actually, a couple of games were a bit sketchy. We had a very good fall season. And I think it was great because in the West Division, the parents that don't normally see me or interact with me, they just know of me. I thought that was very good as well in a situation that was quite dire.
And that's what I think in a club world. That's any coach should be able to step into any team to help out. And it might be a shaky match. It might be some shaky weeks in training, but eventually it levels out pretty quickly if the philosophy and everything's the same. Because every time there's a shakeup every May, I'll call it what it is. May's coming right in 2 months away, 3 months away, is we're going to see the shakeup in North Texas happen again, like it does every year. Coaches change clubs and some lose a lot of coaches, some gain a lot of coaches, and it's whatever chair is left doing the dance.
Yeah,
and
I think that's my biggest thing I don't like about this whole market, but it is what it is. You learn to live with it.
But from the sounds of it, you've been able to retain coaches and retain, for the most part, a lot of your staff.
We unfortunately we weren't given the ECNL, our regional league boys group, and I think that's probably hurt us again for the same reasons that I talked to you before. Was if the parents think that they need to be in that division, they're going to that division. If the coach needs to keep that team or wants to get a team or has had that team since they were 5 years old, I lost one coach. He's actually still with us because he's going to be coaching a younger team with us, but he's also coaching for another club within the ECNL boys program because we don't have it, right? That's a tough one, but sometimes circumstances and the why means that somebody has to do. It doesn't mean you have to lose friendship over it. If you're open about it, life moves on, and hopefully we'll be in a better position to offer some of the boys next time. But luckily he's coming to the girls program with me, so we'll be in good shape now.
But that's the thing. I from the sounds of it, like you don't have in this conversation, like you don't have animosity when someone leaves because you don't have the ECNL right now. But at the same time, I have my opinion on the alphabet leagues, but that's a whole, we could spend days talking about that. It's figuring out.
It's here to stay, and it is what it is. I think we just have to get used to it. And I just want to, if anybody's listening to this, that would happen. I did lose a team last year, a very talented 12 girls team. And there's probably a couple of parents and life. I always have the motto, life is very short. I don't want to lose friends over it. However, there are still a couple of people on that team that I don't really converse to anymore. And I was very good friends with them. It hurts that way, but it also, I think sometimes the circumstances during that period of what happened, sometimes you need a bit of space before it can, for whatever happened, can be healed again. So I would like to say, and I pride myself upon it, but I'll be the first one to turn around and say, I am human and things don't always, there's some people that I haven't probably spoken to. Either side has reached out to because of how it went down. Hey, life is tough, right?
Like everything from team relationships to coaching to player relationships. Eventually you have to grieve it, just like you grieve death, because that's the end of something, but doesn't mean out of the ashes the phoenix can't rise again. That's the thing. That's the lovely thing about this game, is that even though something may have happened last year, this beautiful game still keeps you together. You might see each other at the sidelines at a game, and all of a sudden the whole conversation sparks back up, and who knows what would happen. And it's amazing how that affects everything.
When I was talking to you about interns and the mentorship, it reminds me a lot back home. Joe and I talk about this a lot. Richard, Stewie Sharp, who's at US Soccer now. When we started our careers, we didn't get paid. Never got paid. The amount of hours volunteer I put in to watch, to learn, to be around, to absorb different clubs, and was unreal. It was absolutely unreal. I think this day and age, the majority of the people I talk to that want to get into coaching immediately are looking to be compensated. And I don't disagree. I know it costs money, right? It costs money to drive. It costs money I get all that. But that's where I think sometimes if we're developing coaches and people are expecting that payment right off the bat, what's stopping them from getting their licenses? If they're already so busy and they're earning a good monthly income, what's really enticing them to go and get a license or continuing education? Because they're already quite busy doing it, right? We talk about it all the time. Gosh, we may look old, and we probably do look old, but it's not that long ago when we started. The hours we put in, and I was blessed especially when I came to the States, the people that are around me, every one of them, all at professional clubs, every one of them, all UEFA A licensed coaches. Where they are now is pretty impressive as well, even with the boys that we used to work with. I do find this day and age, I think is a problem, where not a problem that not getting paid, but I do feel and everybody is a coach. I was originally a marine electrical engineer. I was an apprentice for. Nobody ever told me how to do my job, apart from my boss. I became a soccer coach, went through all my licensing, put all the hours and hours behind me, but everybody can tell me what I need to be doing. I think that's probably one of the very few jobs and what we did as youngsters to try and get into the game. I see different now.
I think I don't think people truly understand what an apprenticeship is anymore, or an intern is. Most interns and apprenticeships, you weren't paid. You had a second job to go pay for, or you had a family supporting you, behind you, supporting you. I did my apprenticeship, and so I went to school for 3 months. My union paid for my schooling. I didn't get a pay until I hit the ship for my on-hands learning apprenticeship part. And that's when I actually got paid. But all the education, I spent 3 months. I had to plan for 3 months of no pay in my life. And I was 20 years old, and I learned very quickly. Like, I had to sacrifice and scrape for a good year to save up enough money to be gone for 3 months. And I was 20. I didn't know much. I worked hard. I had 2 to 3 jobs at any given moment when I was 20 years old, 19 years old, and tried to save money to go and have enough money in my savings to support me not working and what little bills I did have, which was pretty much a cell phone bill at the time. And
not really much has changed. Joe, that came a part of this all professional club, he was the academy manager, had a second job, had to have a second job. It's just tough, right? It's just tough. It's a different world back home as well. And there's a lot more money in the English game than probably there was. Well, not probably. There is a whole lot more money in the English game and a whole lot more staff than when I was there 24 years ago.
Yes.
So it's great. And that's the whole, I hear about the pay-per-play system, but if you had that system back home, you'd have more full-time coaches.
Yes. And we can
what would you rather have as a parent? Here's a quick, what would you rather as a parent? A full-time coach that's dedicated to building a team and developing the team, or someone that has to go and get a second job and split the attention between getting a full job or a part-time job to put food on the table and coaching in soccer, right?
Right. And I get what you're saying. I really do. I have a soft spot for coaches. It's like my son's coaches. I don't do anything because I expect something out of them. It's like they had all their goals that weren't working correctly. Like they were missing bolts and screws. So going down to Ace Hardware and spending $10 on screws, bolts for them to replace, to fix the ones that they're missing, even though they're part of Solar, they were formerly part of Lincoln FC. And it's like, to me, as a parent, you're providing a service for my kid. I don't need to have you take more money out of your pocket. If you're going to provide a service that's beyond what my kid needs, I have no problem spending $10 and fixing your goals, because at the end of the day, that's something I can do with my hands and I'm capable of doing. I can't coach. You coach. I'll help you the best that I can. And I think parents need to step back and realize, yes, you're paying coaches and you're paying their livelihood so they can continue coaching, but if you're getting the service, you need to pay for the service that you're getting. I have no problem paying for something as long as I'm getting something out of it in return. If it's teaching my kid how to kick a silly ball around the soccer field and be good at it, great. If it's teaching him how to speak Spanish, even better. But or teaching him to get better grades in school, awesome. And if I can help you on top of that pay of just if you're a teacher and you run a clinic after school, and if it's just taking a screwdriver and making sure all your chairs are tightly screwed, I'm sitting there doing nothing anyways. Might as well be productive.
Makeups. We certainly have a lot of very good people that are willing to do anything and above and beyond, and that's typically the same people that then don't do anything and beyond at the school and anything beyond the scout club, and that's just personality.
Yes, I grew up in a very poor community, so what we did, we bartered. I mean, my dad, I was the gopher for everything, so I learned how to do a lot of things from electrical to plumbing to roofing against my will, and by the time I was 14, 15 years old, I was very grateful for it. And as an adult,
now you are.
I'm very appreciative of it because none of my siblings have this skill set that I have. I'm one of 6 kids. But back to our interview now. As you go through the process of building and developing these players and everything, what resources do you have and where are they at? Let's beyond the coaching now. Let's the facilities that you use.
Training facilities
and
infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yeah.
So we have our own. We've been here 12, I think, coming on 12 years now. We're 12th season here. Excuse me. They were purpose built. We are in the midst right now of, through red tape and county regulations, the whole deal. We're trying to put in a couple of weather fields. As with anything, grass, even over 10 years, all that heavy footprint can take its toll. So we're trying to enlarge our facility so that we can do more work on the grass while we move over to the all weather. Now, the all weather hasn't started yet. Once we get past the red tape from the county, I think we'll be able to get onto that. So we have that. We have training facilities in Garland. We have training facilities in Benbrook, Burleson, and we have further afield as well outside of the DFW area. And we have, what we got some now. We just come away from it in Eastern Course. I think that's about it right now. Richard's obviously up in the colony. He's part of us as well, although he's with Triumph. Oh, Wiley. We're in Wiley as well.
That's quite the footprint.
Used to be bigger. Yeah, it used to be bigger. But it's, like I say to everybody, it's hard to, that can be hard to manage. I can only imagine what the bigger clubs are like. I know my area. And I think the best way of doing it is having people that know their area like the back of their hand rather than me deal with it, right? I do. If I have to get hold of the city or if I've got issues to get hold of, then of course that's something I've got to take care of. But we have a pretty good footprint on the south side, of course, with our offices being in Waxahachie. So our offices and our main soccer fields are here.
Now, is all the facilities pretty much the same that you're using, or some have a little bit more just because there's more players there or more teams in those facilities?
It depends. So we got the other facilities are all rented and not for sale, and they're not owned. I think it's difficult to own facilities now.
Yes.
But our fields are probably the private. So our fields are purpose built. So they're the size they are for the people that we got. Ones in Benbrook can easily host a couple of teams practice, which is all we need up there. Burleson, actually that's private. One of our parents built it. That hosts our younger groups down in the Burleson area. It's probably a couple of acres, I think. Garland is rented also, and that's a couple of fields.
That's as a parent, it's impressive because most fields are truly just rented, and coaches bring their pop-up goals. They don't bring. And that you actually have your own facility that was built for a purpose, built for a reason. Now you talk about transitioning from grass to, from the sounds of it, turf, all weather. Will you continue keeping as much grass as possible, or keep a combination of both?
So I think I built the fields with the help of a couple of people. So I learned a whole lot 12 years ago that I never thought I'd ever learn. Really, there's probably a 10-year life in both if looked after properly and watered properly. With the amount of foot traffic on grass fields, you're just paying for that over 10 years, whereas on the all-weather field, it's all up front. So I think really the expenses up front on the all-weather field, but I think it's important to have grass fields there, and it's extra space. So the reason we're going all-weather is because I don't want to put another irrigation system in. We're on a well, so all ours is well water. So we're something you might not know, but we're the only amateur youth soccer club. We've been accepted by the United Nations for the sustainability of sport. With some of the bigger clubs in the UK and America. So we're all about making sure that we're using a lighter footprint. So we've got a well, and that obviously water then recirculates back around. But trying to make another well, or to try and get another holding pond, if you like, to get the next, it's just extra expenses not needed. Whereas if you put on an all-weather field, that for sure, the mowing, keeping it, the pre-emergent alone 4 times a year is ridiculous. And people don't realize that. Sometimes I often think now it's probably cheaper to, and I know it is in towns near me, to rent out a field from the city, but you don't have the luxury then of, hey, I want to scrimmage next week. Now you've got to book out a field from the city. Here we can just do it. We can run our league, some of our league games out of it. We can host friendlies. We can do whatever we want within our field. And we also have, hey, it's not that bad in rain. We put enough sand down on the field that when it rains, if it's not a torrential downpour, we're probably back on it within a day, whereas other city fields are still closed. So there's definitely pros and cons for having your own field. And of course, the upkeep is one of those things, whereas the city is upkeeping city fields. But for us, it's nobody else can come on it. We dictate who comes on it. That's great. Nobody can knock us off of it. And we can enlarge it as we want, and we can do how we want with it and when we want with it. So I think those are the bonus sides of it. The biggest complaints, I think, from the city fields are just that. It's just they're city fields, and you're dictated to when there's
spare time. To also, the other thing I think parents don't understand when it's not your own facility is the maintenance of it might not be to the highest standard. Fields, there's some beautiful fields around this metroplex, I can tell you that much, but there are some really rough shaped fields.
Yeah, it's tough for us as well. It's a lot of mowing, especially during the summer months. We've got water on it and it just grows like the weed, but it's not perfect by any shape of imagination because the footprint we have down there, and it's constant work, right? And we do have another facility in Mansfield that's all weather as well. That's a rented facility, but we only have a couple of teams. Again, this is for a couple of teams on that one.
Right. And so in the ideal world, what is the goal per age group for teams then? Because you have your facilities all spread out. What's the ideal goal then for age groups? So is the goal to have 3 teams per age group, 2 teams per age group, or it doesn't really matter because it's about the player and not wanting to turn them away, as you said earlier?
Yeah, that's not a vision or a goal or anything about. It'd be fantastic if you could have a first team and a reserve team, but even if you have those in the same location, there's inherent issues. Well, my kid needs to play on that team, or my kid. So there's inherently those issues on that side. And then, of course, maybe you have 2 teams that are of the same quality, and who goes into which league. So it'd be great to have 2 teams per age group. Is it that important? No. If we have 1 in one age group and 5 in another, that's fine. I think what's important for us as a club and for our coaches and our parents is to make sure that the quality coaching, or the coaching, is of highest quality provided to the players that we have, and that we give everybody the same opportunity in the player development pathway. So that's more important to us than having 15 teams deep. If we were going after more and more leagues and having to provide more teams, then the quality is going to drop off, or you're going to have to go after more teams, and then you're going to lose. There's a trade-off, right? So the trade-off between that is between more teams and more problems versus can we do things well? And listen, we're not perfect like I told you, we're not perfect by any shape or imagination. And there's always going to be something that didn't work out for somebody, and they'll certainly bring that up. But we genuinely want to be the best coaches there are. The top coaches is what we're after. The coaching is second to none. And when people leave from us, they're like, man, that was a session that I've not got anywhere else.
I think that's the thing. Now, how do you guys go about your recruiting then? You guys have the southern metroplex of the area pretty well.
It's tough, right? I run it tournaments and I run leagues. There is no chance I can recruit. And the reason for that is I'll lose all respect from people around me for coming into our leagues and our team. So I won't recruit that way. So our recruitment is, and we stress this on the coaches, how you act on the sideline, the coaching delivery. For me, any of my teams, Joe's a little bit different, but any of my teams, you can make 15 mistakes. You ain't coming out. You're not going to come out because you made mistakes. So I don't want to create players that are scared to be on the ball. So if people can see the way we coach, the way we interact with the players, the way we deliver our content, the way we develop, and if they played at the beginning of the season, how has it changed by the end of the season? That in itself is a recruiting tool within the areas and the coaching, the leagues that we're in. We also advertise, but we don't. I've seen many coaches come up to my players, and actually it was about the 12 team. I had 3 coaches hover around my last game with the 12 girls, and probably a reason why I don't talk or converse just yet with a couple of my parents, but all just hovering home, ready to talk to my kids. And I thought that's just, if I put them in my shoe and me in their shoe, how would they feel? And so I don't do it that way. We don't do it that way. The quality of our teams, the leagues that we're in, typically have a phone call. We have information on our website, so you can put an inquiry in depending on what region you're in. So ask what region you're in, what's the year of your kiddo, and then we direct them to those areas.
Now, do you find as soccer or football, however you want to call it, is growing in this country?
I've been here long enough. It's soccer.
I got the audience, whoever you're talking to. So as it's growing here in the United States, do you find more in the South it's starting to pick up more where families don't feel the need to travel, where they can reach out to you folks and stay in the South and not have to drive 40, 50 minutes for a training session than over an hour for a league play or whatever it may be? Or do you think they are starting to stay locally closer because there are clubs like yourself?
Yeah, I think the access to competitive clubs are there. I think there's a price point access to various clubs down here, and I think there's a competition level to the access to the clubs that are down here. So whatever really is an individual you are wanting, there is access to that in the South. Now, for the very talented players, there's obviously an active recruiting to games that we go to, especially in the pre-ECNL area, that will take players away, or maybe a player's looking for something, or maybe the name of our club isn't in their mind recognizable enough for them to be long-term thinking about college or whatever the case may be, although we get our kids to where they need to get to as well. I think it depends on the parent. There's a less need now for a parent probably to stay in recreational longer. Not that I'm trying to diss recreational. There's definitely a place for the player in recreational and the recreational for a player. But I think the players that were historically in there longer and they were talented and they weren't getting competition, either dropped out of the sport or because they never had options, now they do. And those options can range in the south here from Cedar Hill to Midlothian to Mansfield to Waxahachie to Innis to Corsicana, whatever that may be. And Oak Cliff, of course, and it's got quite a wide selection. You may not class that as south, but it's still south of the I-30.
It's fascinating how the Metroplex is divided. And like I'm over in North Fort Worth, the west side of town, and soccer is finally picking up here. In the last 3 years, I can't believe how much soccer has grown on this side of town and the things that are developing here. And I know that was the conversation I've had with parents about the south side of the Metroplex. Is it's been a struggle down there for years, and now there's finally. You guys been around for a while. I find
20 years this year.
I find it very cool that there's these clubs that are down there like yourself, and the conversation that we've had today has really showed me the distinction between you and many of the other clubs that may be down there, and the conversations we've been having along the path of this. And how do you build teams? Because team chemistry, that might be the better word of doing it. Do you guys do you encourage your coaches to have a lot of team bonding experiences? Because everything I ever heard of any great team coming out of the Metroplex, it's because they have a great team chemistry off the pitch, not just on the pitch. And do you find that to be something you're able to do?
Yeah. We've got teams that do escape rooms. When we travel, we always have at least one get together. Some of these places that we travel to have those amusement indoor parks, like they got go-karts and they got machines and basketball and bowling, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we do have that. We have a big banquet a huge banquet once a year that brings everybody in as well. Outside of anything that's outside of soccer practice, because I think for most kids, leave school, come to practice, minimal chit chat, we're straight into a session, they're back home. Go to a game, minimal chit chat, into a warm up, game, home. So we've, on our side and the girls' side, we had a team dinner just a couple of weeks ago. Hey, let's everybody go after the game. Nobody's got anything else going on. Let's go grab dinner, everybody. And they planned that 2 or 3 weeks in advance to that game that was scheduled. We've done, like I told you, the girls have also done an escape room lock-in. We have our banquet. We have our club signing party that we really get everybody in. We have the boys' side have done pretty much the same, where they get together in groups of their teams. And we do cross teams as well, because you've got a lot of siblings here.
Yes, that's the thing. I find it very fascinating. A lot of teams, I always joke, I always tell which teams spend a lot of time together off the pitch together because of how much they fight like brothers, they act like brothers, or fight like sisters and act like sisters. And you can always tell who spends
I always
time off the
think
pitch.
I've always thought it important that if there's a Storm team at let's say Arlington Fields, and another Storm team comes up, I've always felt important that, hey, do those kids know those kids? Or is it just two teams wearing the same uniform? And that's probably been one of the hardest ones as we get a little bit more wider stretched, is that a Fort Worth team might not know a Garland team. They just know that they're the same team or the same club because they've got the same uniforms. Whereas when we're a little bit smaller, everybody knew everybody. And I thought that was pretty cool. The Weatherford kids knew the Waxahachie kids. The Corsicana kids knew the Mansfield kids. It's just the Hearst kids knew the Innis kids.
I think watching teams play and how kids interact, I can only relate to my own kid because that's the only example I have. But if he has a friend playing on the pitch and we have nowhere else going on, he'll ask, can I go watch so-and-so play? Can we watch half the game? It might be from a completely different club now, but it's someone he played with on a team somewhere, or a classmate he might come across at the pitch. We've sat and watched. They have a RPL team and pre-ECNL team, and he'll ask to watch the RPL team play after his game, or if they're at the same, if it's a tournament. It's funny because it's one after the next, and he'll ask to watch the RPL team play. And I think even though they don't practice together that often, he knows all the kids on the team. He sees them at the training facility, training fields. And I think even if they have the same jersey, Landon will watch play because if it's instilled the culture of the club into the players, I think the players pick up on it and want to be part of it, even if it's just another team they may not know a single player on, or they might have an interaction with the coach. I want to go watch this coach play. And it's funny watching kids do that. And from the sounds of it, if your coaches are bouncing between teams a little bit to help out, you'll have that culture. And as a parent looking in, it's fascinating what you have been doing through everything and designing everything. And having a 5-year plan and a 5-year culture paradigm shift as time goes on is huge. So I'm going to ask my favorite question, and it's because you've played and you're coach now. It's a 2-part question. Who has been your greatest influence on you as a player, and who's been the greatest influence on you as a coach?
I'll start with the latter. My love for coaching came from one person, and that was a guy. And everybody has one of these, a mentor or a person in your life that kind of led you up that path. And that was a guy called Billy Kernow. Very Cornish name right there. Short, stocky guy, balding with the old crazy hair going around the side of him. Lived and breathed football, soccer. Lived and breathed it. I was at his house every night as a 13, 14, 15-year-old. And I would put teams together my age, so he could coach us. The coaching methods now, I would be jailed for, but they used, back in the day, the ball bag used to be like a goal net with a string around the top. He used to hook that to the goal. We'd all have to go up and smash it with our header it, so it'd go over the goalpost, and then we'd have to come back the other way and jump higher to knock it back over the goalpost. And we'd do that for an hour and a half. No wonder. There's the reason we get concussions. Got nothing and lose our minds and brains. It got nothing to do with this very soft ball this day and age. That was a proper leather ball as well. Not your 60s ball, of course, but still your 1980s proper leather mitre ball. Still soaked up a bit of water in there. But he really gave me, we'd be on of course, kids don't know these days, the old ring circle dial up, the old telephone, and we'd be calling for teams to play. And I'd go to school and I'd round up whoever I thought was the best and sell it to them. You ain't going to believe this. We're going to have the best team. And so anyway, he gave me an insight on running a team as well, not just playing. And then I used to be intrigued by his coaching sessions, and they were very primitive. He was a very old school, late 60s, 70s. That was his heyday. But he just loved coaching. And he was a bit harsh as well. I remember having to walk home 10 miles one day because I didn't play very well, but I was 14 years old. So things you can't do today or things that he done back then. I explained to my mum and dad while I was coming in the house at 9:30 at night. But he instilled something in me that I was always going to be a better coach than a player. I just seen the game differently as a coach than I did a player. So he was the one really that initially made me fall in love with coaching. And really, I took over coaching when I was 15, 16 of those little 12-year-olds, U12, whatever. So I wasn't even old enough to drive. I had to make people come and get me and drive them to games down in Cornwall. But over time, I've told you I've been blessed. And the times, even here in the States, Mike Vincent, Stewie Sharp, Stewie Sinclair, Richard Smith, there's an absolute abundance of quality coaches. And to be honest, when I first started, probably each one of them, I'll just sit and watch. And I'll watch sessions. Like, how boring am I? I just watch sessions. And I learned a lot from it. I just learned a lot. And after watching a lot of the soccer, and I knew, even as a player, I think you are ultimately guided. If you've played, I think you're ultimately guided by who you are as a player and what would suit you as a player. Now, when I was a player, those days are gone. The tackles, I'll probably get more red cards. I never got a card when I was a kid, but I'd get cards now, I'd imagine, if I played the way I played. But so the styles changed, but the way I wanted to play hadn't. So the way I wanted to play and how I played are two very different things. I wasn't gifted enough to play the way I want to play. And I think that really shaped me. But then going and spending time I was at some big soccer clubs, big football clubs, big professional football clubs in England before I came here full time. And the opportunities I got in the States to be able to watch and learn. And I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly on courses or doing online courses. Or Paddy's worse than me, of course. Paddy will watch a game. As he told you this, he'll watch a game 4 times. He'll watch the game, then he'll watch it on one team for the defending as they defend, then he'll watch it again with them attacking, then he'll watch it again with the other team defending, the other team attacking. Drives his wife nuts. Maybe not that bad, but when I started coaching and getting my licenses, the game changed for me. How I saw the game changed. Things would appear. The easiest way to explain that is when you watch maybe a documentary or something and they have those, maybe it was a crime one, you see some of the key bits that are important to the crime flash up, they lighten them up. It's hard to explain that way, but that's how I see some of the game. It's obvious, if that makes sense. And then I talked to my coach next to him, how do you see that? And I was like, you can't see that. So it's just something that has developed through those people around me. And again, I didn't take vacations. I took time off to go to major clubs and watch coaching sessions. That's what I did. When I told my wife I'm going back to England so I can go, I've already got all the clubs I'm going to lined up: Villa, Forest, Rangers, Tranmere, wherever they were, I'm already there. 3 days here, 3 days there, 3 days there, and then back home again. There was no time to even see my family going home, and that's just how I went. So as a coach, all of those coaches that I interacted with have been a part of who I am and how I'm developing and who I'm still becoming. I would like to think that I'm still going to evolve right until I end up not coaching anymore. And that'll probably be when I'm under in a box. I don't want to be stationary. I want to be able to always think, can this game be different? Is there new techniques we can use that can help the kiddos? And of course, I've been more or less in the youth side as opposed to some of my friends that went into the men's professional side. And I like it because I think we're molding young athletes into not just sports people, but also young individuals. And we have an impact in that as well. And hopefully a whole generation is going to come back and take their kids into soccer instead of baseball, football. Not that I'm trying to take them away from the soccer, from the American market, but that's what I want to do. And that's what I came here to do, is to grow the sport. So really, as a coach, there's a lot, it's not really an answer for you. One guy got me the bug. And then there is a slew of people, and I am going to tell you, there's probably going to be more people post them, that are also going to shape me in the way I think. I think any good coach would probably admit There's always going to be somebody out there that they're like, dang, he's good. Dang, that's a different way of looking at things. Or I like the way he delivers that and he thinks about things that way. And we do things a little bit different. When I ask a lot of kids to come in, how do you break down the field? There's the 3 areas. No, we don't do that here. We're going to break it to 4 because it makes it easier for a halfway line. And these are going to be the building the play, developing the play, creating the play, finishing the play. Because it's not that we're trying to be different. We're trying to make it easier for that kid to understand more. Rather than having names for 1v1s, they got to just break it down. There's only 4 ever types of 1v1s: face to face, side to side, diagonal, back to pressure, or back to goal. Now we can say, okay, where are you out on the field? Coach, I'm in the creating the play phase. Okay, where are you? I'm out wide. Okay, so who's defending you? They're side to side. What are you going to do? Oh, I'll do a crawl for a drag back. Whole lot easier for a kid to be able to accelerate their learning and capabilities and attaining what skills they need when they know those things. So it's just those coaches that have been around me has shaped the way that we think and I think about how to coach. And I'm sure it's going to keep changing.
That's awesome. Now, as a player, who shaped you as a young player that you are growing up?
Who shaped me as a player? Okay, so nobody shaped me as a player because I was never good enough to be shaped by a player. I was the
Parent,
people
coach.
So when I played, most of my friends I used to play against would say, they used to hate playing against me because they said, when they can't hear my footprints, I'm in the air. So you can tell the old way of playing is definitely not the new way of playing, but I would win every ball. I had the little man syndrome. I was very small, but nobody was going to win the ball from me. So I could pass very well, but there was never really anybody. And again, I always played outside. There wasn't anybody to watch on the TV because it sounds old and stuff. But my mum and dad were very young when I was born. They had to work all the time just to be able to put food on the table. So TV, black and white, my brother in the corner of the room holding up the ears. And there was but to be fair, there wasn't much TV on then. Sorry, there wasn't much soccer on TV back then. It just wasn't. Very different nowadays. Like my boy can look at and watch any game he wants to in the world. And he's probably going to get a lot more influence if he decides to do that or whatever sport he goes to. But that wasn't for me. We never had a video recorder. A lot of my friends used to have the videos of all the tricks because back then there's no YouTube or anything. So it was videos. Really, it was self-discovery with my brother and myself out in the front garden or my grand's. We had a concrete ramp to go into a garage. And that garage was everything. It was the goal. It was also the place when we played cricket where the ball would stay in the area so it wouldn't go out anywhere. It was the launch for our skateboard. It was the basis of all our young life. And that's really where we became he's a very different player to who I am. There was no real player that was modeled from. It just wasn't. Do I wish there was? Probably. I would love to have seen some. And, now I'm older and you look back at some of the early boys that used to play, Zico, some of those Brazilian boys and Socrates, and even some of the English boys. Some of them passed away now. But really, my hero was Paul Gascoigne, Gaza. Unfortunately, I read in the paper today that he slipped off the wagon again. So it's very sad to hear. But quite frankly, I went to watch him. He scored a goal against possibly the ugliest defender in the world, the Scottish Colin Hendry. If you ever not seen it, look up Paul Gascoigne or Gaza, 1996 Euro goal. It's unbelievable. Probably the best player of his time, in my opinion, of that time. I was never going to be him because it was just too technical for me. But that's who my hero was. But I'll be honest with you, I would prefer to watch live games than watch it on TV. Now, I'm a Newcastle fan and it's getting better for me, but I will watch Newcastle, however difficult and hard it is, I will watch them. But the reality is that I love watching live soccer. Even when I was back home doing my second degree, I was at Argyle and I used to have fields. There were like 16 fields behind me, my house. Every Saturday I had nothing on. I walked down, I could pick any of those fields 16 and just watch all day long. And that's what I'd do. I'd watch soccer or live soccer all day long. Live
Awesome.
sports, I'm a glutton for that one. I took my boy to his first cricket T20 up in Grand Prairie last summer. Live sport, and he enjoyed it as well. They kept it entertaining. Luckily, they kept it entertaining for a 4-year-old. That's pretty good because that can take a few hours, cricket. But that's really where I'm at. Nowadays, I think the player to watch out there, I know Bellingham is obviously quite good, but Musiala, I've been very impressed with Musiala. Unfortunately, he's German now. He switched allegiance from England to Germany, so I was very disappointed with that. But I think we'll see him in the Premier League probably next year. I think he'll be leaving Bayern Munich, so it'd be really exciting to see Musiala back in the Premier League.
Hey everyone, I really hope you've enjoyed Coach Antony with Storm FC. His insight and knowledge into the North Texas culture is phenomenal. The conversations I've had with this man have truly shaped some of my opinions that I have on soccer in North Texas. My opinion as a parent has been greatly shaped by this man with conversations he and I have had. He is a great resource. He is a person that if you're looking to have your player truly develop, they have a game plan, they have a program, and I can honestly say I'm really impressed. Hey everyone, if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, have enjoyed what I've been trying to do, the messages that I'm putting out there, please give me some ratings, some stars on all the podcast sites that you listen to this on. Give me a review, share this, share with others. The more I can make this grow, the more I can continue doing this. I'm really trying to make a difference in our soccer community. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all this. And until next time, I'll see you at the pitch.